Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Well, welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glenn Sutherland. This week, my guest is Alex Powell. Alex, you want to give everybody a bit of an intro to yourself?
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for having me again. I think this is number two on the show. So, a little bit about me is I am a full-time real estate investor. I started my kind of career in mechanical engineering and project management, and from there, I kind of got my real estate license. Then I started getting more into investing. Then I started taking on much bigger projects through investing. Started, with the duplex conversions, and then I slowly got into like bigger apartment buildings. And so now we're in 3 different provinces, and we bought also in the U.S. I'm actually going to Columbus next weekend to look at some buildings, which is really exciting. And yeah, so we're working with all kinds of investors, and we're doing some really exciting things and looking to scale up, actually, which I find is actually a much more of a relief. I don't know if you're probably feeling the same way, but it makes a lot more sense. It always has. But I think that you go through these mental barriers and just experience. But so that's kind of where I am in a short synopsis.
No, that's awesome. And you know what? Actually, it's completely true, the mental barriers, because, there is anyone who asks me, like, there's tons of advantages doing single family homes. There's tons of advantages doing like a multifamily or, whatever size you want to do. Like even myself, I want to do everything. I want to do them both. But, I think part of it is you're terrified to buy something that you can't possibly afford yourself.
Yes. That's actually the best definition that I've heard. It is scary to buy something you can't afford yourself. I love that.
Yeah, because that's how I feel. You're like, hey, I want to buy a $20 million building, and you're like, how? If I can't, what's my fallback? What if I can't do this? What's the fallback? Right? But then you go for it. You partner with other people, and you make stuff happen. Right? And you take some of the barriers out of there. Anyway, we're going to talk about whatever we feel like talking about. But one thing that you said in your intro that sort of got my interest and even in question, because you're kind of investing in a bunch of different places, and you said you went and got your real estate license. Do you find that that's advantageous for real estate investing when you're kind of in different markets than
No, absolutely not. In fact, it's more of a hindrance sometimes than it is an advantage. And this is not to discount any realtors out there. I value real estate agents. I have worked extensively in the real estate transactional sphere. In fact, when we flip houses, we still represent ourselves. And we still do transactional real estate for friends, clients, family, of course, and we're good at it. Like both my wife, Kaylee, and I, we have become very good realtors in a sense. But for me, real estate, having my ticket as a real estate agent is no different than having my driver's license and being able to drive a vehicle. To me, I'm not the flag bearer for realtor.ca. I'm a proud realtor and I don't wear the pin kind of thing. For me, it's literally a license to do what I can within the legal confines of what the rules are. And it only applies to me here in Ontario. Like I can't trade in Alberta or New Brunswick where we also buy. But in terms of it being a hindrance, it's like I see investors can be like, being a realtor in Ontario, I'm mandated and we do disclose everything. So obviously we're disclosing that we're a real estate agent. We're disclosing that we have intentions to make a profit. We're disclosing that in my agreements of purchase sale, when I'm buying like a really shitty flip, I'll put in there my intention is to buy this property, put money into it, which in turn will increase the value of the home. The seller fully understands this and accepts this because the amount of blowback that you can get is unreal. Whereas typically an investor who's going in there just like as a cowboy or something like that, they don't have to put any of that stuff, and nor are they regulated by RICO. So we make sure that we stay within the confines because we have our licenses at this point. We might as well just keep it up, and so we still do the continuing education and all that kind of stuff for it. But yeah, that's my stance.
I've heard both ways too, and even say you got your hands on a property under contract, just assigning it if you have the license, you're gonna you probably want to run it by someone to make sure you're doing this right. And, whereas it's
Yeah.
a little bit looser if you don't have the license.
Yeah. We've got a really good broker of record
Yeah.
who also owns investment properties, and he's very above board. So whenever I've had questions and stuff like that, it's been a very advantageous partnership and mentor kind of to bounce ideas off of to make sure we're not doing anything illegal or something, But for sure, that's where I find it's like, it's nice. Like we're buying in Alberta right now. We actually just firmed up on on a 12 unit out there yesterday. It's awesome. Like I'm working actually with realtors and wholesalers out there, and it's very nice to kind of have that degree of separation where I'm not the one like hunting, sourcing, all that stuff. I'm just kind of vetting, right?
Right.
Which is really
That makes
nice.
a lot of sense. So yeah, I think last time we talked, we talked about the US stuff, right? So you went back to investing in Canada, but a different province. What inspired that? Why Alberta? Why, what
Yeah. So it's interesting. I actually went to Pensacola in January of last year, and I have a mentor of mine out there, and he actually manages, I think it's like a $3 billion with a B dollar real estate fund out of Pensacola. So they're doing these massive trailer park kind of like amusement parks effectively. They've got like mini putt and restaurants and all this kind of like, you get a badge and you can swipe it and like it lets you into all this kind of stuff. So they're in these massive developments. And so he's kind of graduated from like, flipping the single families to small scale apartment buildings to buying like 500 unit complexes to now doing this kind of thing. So it was really inspirational to go there, but it was very eye opening when we were talking about markets. And he's like, when you look at real estate as a whole, your job is to be able to execute on a business plan. You can call real estate whatever you want, and you can look at all the finite elements of like going and looking at an area and the economic indicators and population growth and GDP and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, our job as the real estate investors, once we've vetted all that, is to find a place that we can execute on a business plan. You got to buy it. You have to improve the operating costs of the building, improve the operating expenses so that your net operating income is better, and then your building's worth more and you're more profitable. It's pretty simple. In Ontario, you cannot do that. No chance. It will not happen unless you're buying vacant, right?
Yeah.
And if you are buying vacant, you're typically buying at a premium, which is, the way it is, right? So for us, we have apartment buildings here in Ontario, and I would still buy in Ontario for value-added opportunities. But I don't want to deal with the red tape of like the tenant regulations and the rules and the laws. Like even in Alberta, where it's, Edmonton right now is going through a pretty wicked boom, and I'm super, super excited about it. And the more and more I learn about it and read about it, the more excited I get because it just seems like this like really unique opportunity. But for example, there, it's like we had a tenant who was placed by the previous owner. This is on the first building we bought out there. It's a 10 unit. And so as soon as we took possession of the building, the tenant obviously wasn't paying right off the cuff. So we're like, okay, well, this is our first kick at the can. Let's go at it. So we hired on a guy who goes and represents us. And it's very affordable. And he's like, okay, so I got our hearing date. It's in 2 weeks. I was like, what? 2 weeks? This is incredible. He's like, yeah. And after the hearing date, it's about a week to get the sheriff out. So like you're getting a tenant out in 3 weeks, effectively, for non-payment of rent. No issues, no fuss, no muss. It's black and white. No nervousness about what happens if they don't have time for me at the LTB. We had another issue. It was with regards to my mother-in-law. She bought a house for herself, and there's a tenant that doesn't want to leave. So we're with, we set her up with our paralegal as a referral, and we put her, this was last July, she bought it. We had her first hearing in April of this year. And at that point, they determined that because she submitted the paperwork as the buyer, but by the time the hearing happened, she was the owner.
Yeah.
That the paperwork was null and void. So back to the drawing board, resubmitted, went back, beginning of October, had the second hearing. We get to the second hearing, and they said, how long do you guys think you're going to be? And a paralegal referred us, said, we'll be 5 minutes. And then the opposite side says, we need at least 2 hours. to go through all the evidence. And so the adjudicator said, well, I didn't schedule enough time for this. We're going to have to adjourn this again. So get this. Like that's what we're living with here in Ontario. And to me, it's just such a broken system. And I feel bad is because, she's planning to use this home and she can't. And like, what a joke. So
yeah, I can't imagine buying a house and then not actually getting possession of the house. Really, like
imagine that.
Yeah,
imagine. It's just like such a wild, messed up system. Like what a broken. Anyway,
and then honestly, I think even if on Ontario, like if we're gonna go down that path, like there's still lots of stuff that works there, but long-term holds, that's a tough game.
Yeah,
you might want to do flips, short-term, there's lots of ways to make money here. There's just if you're gonna do long-term, there's a lot of places can be a lot easier to do it.
Yeah,
I have more free content, so if you're interested, I created a PDF guide and a video to go along with the PDF guide to complement it. And what the guide is all about is the 5 most common mistakes that Canadians make when investing in the United States. So if you're interested in this free guide, go to CanadianInvestingInTheUSA.com/mistakes. And let's go back to the podcast. And it's free.
No, for sure. And so we got 2 flips going on right now, one in Thorold and one in Haldimand, just outside of Caledonia. Yep. So there, I'll do flips all day, every day. It's actually one of my passions is turning derelict, like run down houses into something beautiful. The one in Thorold, actually, we put the whole house on stilts and we blew out the whole foundation and we re-poured footings and re-blocked the whole foundation and then re-lowered the whole house down on it. It was really cool.
Is that the old foundation was just garbage, I'm guessing?
So they built the old foundation with just bricks, like wall bricks. And it went about 2 feet below the ground level. Yeah. And that was it. And so when you walked in, you're like getting vertigo because the whole house is like that. And they're like, we have no idea why it's like this. Like, well, I kind of have an idea why it's like this. So
you can't do that if you have frost, right? Because it's gonna heat and pull. Like you got in Ontario, you got to go down
4 feet.
It's not like you can't do like in Florida, put it on a pad. It just doesn't work here.
Yeah. So it's been a fun project actually to kind of see that come to life because everybody on the street has just like turned their nose up at this property. It's like it has no siding. They use Tyvek as the siding, so like the house has had Tyvek around it for better part of 5 years. So we just put a big dormer addition on the top of it. Now that the foundation's all done, we're just actually working on the deck post holes in the back and the front, and we should be on to landscaping next week to like tidy the place up before winter, and then we can just start working on the inside once we get heat. So yeah, it's exciting.
Doing that sounds really expensive. Like, I'm not sure the cost, but like, would it not, like at some time, would it not be more prohibitive to just start over?
Demolish? You know what? I think about that sometimes. So, and it doesn't make sense yet, right? So I get it. Like, I mean, I could lift it. Like when they lift the house, it's actually not that much. They're disconnecting the utilities, right? Like the gas, water, all that stuff, and then they just like they're jacking it up with jack posts, and then they're putting these massive like 8x8s in like a cross section, right? So they're almost like they're building. It's like they do it in like the shorelines and stuff like that when they're building like little pillars, and then they literally just excavate around, take out the old rubble, which like comes up like nothing. You can like knock it over with your hands, and then they put it in a bin, and then we just poured a new footing. So if I would, and that was the thought, is like, should I just demolish it and start over? And then you get maybe like a full basement, because right now we're still dealing with a crawl space. It'll be a 3-foot crawl space, but it's not like you can't walk down there kind of thing. So the idea is like, could I have made now a full basement, by doing this? But I don't know. The value add for me didn't make sense, because for me to do that whole foundation, I think it costs like $35,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So to lift the house, pour the foundation, and then put it back down. And then we all already have the exterior walls. We got the roof. We got everything. It's already got a second story. Now to do the dormer and all the framing cost me $20,000. So for $50,000, I now have solid footings and foundation and all my external framing and interior framings done. And so if I was to demolish that, start over with a poured foundation and then build the ground up, I'd probably be closer to like, I want to say maybe 80, 90 grand, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
It makes sense. If you're gonna go dig that out too, I guess it depends on the area. It doesn't sound like you're in a big city. So
no, it's in Thorold. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Thorold's not his. That's outside St. Catharines, so that's a decent sized city actually. I was thinking the Haldeman one, which that might be out in the country. But would this work at this point? Because you're like, hey, I am putting a whole new foundation. I could make it deeper and like put like a secondary suite because you said that in your intro that you had done some of that. Did that cross your mind at all, or does it not make sense in that area?
Yeah, I to be honest with you, for the Haldeman one, for example, like we just that foundation just needed to have the front face of the foundation redone. So that was an easy kind of tore that down, braced it, and then we reformed it into the existing foundation with like rebar and stuff, and then we waterproofed the whole surrounding.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one would have been a bigger project to have to like completely demolish, redig. It's not out of the question for a future project, but for these ones, it seemed to just kind of make sense with the status quo. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So these will be nice high end kind of that'll be a nice high end country property. Actually, it's going to be going up on the market at the end of the month. So we had the stager through this morning, and floors are all getting done. Kitchen's going in this weekend. Very exciting.
Cool. So,
Yeah.
just curious because you can always say you're not interested in talking about this, but whenever
No.
you're doing all these projects, you got the 12 unit in Alberta and these two flips that you're currently working on.
Mhm.
How are you doing joint ventures? How are you raising money? You're doing a syndication? How are you putting this all together? Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that I've created a new coaching program. I believe the new coaching program has way more value than any of the programs that have even existed in the past. What we've done is pre-recorded all the lessons so that you can work through it at your own pace, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to meet up on a regular basis to answer the questions, do deal analysis, and actually spend our time together working on things instead of spending our time learning things. I think this will make a seamless transition to buying in the United States and will help you solve a lot of your problems. If this is of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com/coaching. I hope to help you guys invest in the United States, and I hope we provide as much value as possible. Back to the podcast.
Yeah. So the building in Alberta, the first one we just bought ourselves. I'm always adamant to like proof of concept with my own cash, right? At least if I'm buying in a province somewhere, doesn't matter the scale of it, I would like to embark on it ourselves with our own money. And then this next one is with partnerships. So we'll just have we're both on like a partnership agreement, right? So kind of like a joint venture, but it's not a syndication. As for the flips we do all with private money. And we used to partner on flips, but it's very expensive to partner with flips. Sorry. So we just we have a lot of we have a pretty big private money network, and we've got a really good track record. Like we've never ever missed a payment on anything. So we got people who want to lend us money hand over fist. It's quite nice actually. So
no, that's actually the key. Is you said one thing right there is that you never missed a payment. Like
ever.
With myself, same thing. If you're doing these things, you just even if projects aren't going right, you pull it out of your line of credit, you pull it from wherever.
You figure it out.
People get paid, they keep lending money. People don't get paid, they go ruin your reputation.
and my word is my bond. It wouldn't matter if we always have like the prom note signed, or if they go on like on title or something like that, it's always there. But like it wouldn't even matter if it was or wasn't, because at the end of the day, my word is my bond, and there's not a hope in hell that anyone will miss a payment. So
yeah, no, I love it. So what's the so I don't know if you want to talk about the 12 unit, or what's the next plan? What's the future for Alex here?
Well, Alberta, so the Edmonton market is good. It's actually really good. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. Alberta has traditionally been very boom bust. So it's funny when I'm looking at buildings right now, like for example, the 10-unit building that we bought it for 1.2 million. And the previous owner who sold it to us, he bought it for 1.28 million in 2016.
Huh.
Yeah. And so they're like, what the heck is wrong with this building? And it's not even so much that, it's that Alberta has literally gone through these cycles that are so dramatic. And I think that right now we're kind of creeping out of the bottom. So there's a couple of different plays from one, from just a construction standpoint. Like Edmonton right now is expanding and they're growing. There's a lot of developments where you go there, there's construction happening everywhere. So people with the foresight are already starting to put their money into it. So you see this kind of stuff happening. The other thing is like you can't build a 10 unit for $1.2 million with land value. Not a hope in hell. No way. So we're already buying these buildings cheaper than what it would cost us to build them. So for us, the development side isn't quite the play either, is that you can take these buildings that have in the past been the people are kind of holding on for dear life. Like when oil went to negative a barrel, it was just a ghost town. People were leaving Edmonton in droves. And what ended up happening is a lot of these bigger building owners started incentivizing or telling people like, "Oh, we'll give you 3 months of free rent if you if you rent for the other 9 months, or if your rent's on the bare bones minimum, but if you pay on time, I'll discount another $100 or something." And you see all these things, and these are fairly common in when areas become scarce. So what I found now is Alberta as a province has done a really good job aiming to redefine themselves. And this is a long, arduous process that they've gone through. I'm a big fan of the Premier, Danielle Smith. I think that whenever she speaks, I'm like, this makes too much sense, whatever you're saying. And I think that from a political standpoint, we can argue whether or not the Liberals maintain power for the federal government or the Conservatives get into power, but there's two methodologies. Liberals stay in power. Alberta has already done a tremendous amount to redefine the country and to bring in a lot more people. If you look at the interprovincial migration numbers, it is so far skewed in Alberta's favor that it's crazy. I think there's obviously a scale factor, but when you look at like Ontario and British Columbia, they're major negatives, and Alberta was like 16,000. And I'm not sure what the scale factor is. So new immigrants, yes, they're coming into these bigger cities, and then they realize that they can't afford it. They realize that there's, jobs are maybe a little bit more scarce, and then they flock to these smaller cities. And Alberta is just drawing people in. I heard that a few months back there was advertisements on the Toronto, the TTC on the subway system, saying like, "Come to Alberta. We've got jobs. We've got more affordability." And so one of their things is like they want Calgary to be like the Silicon Valley of the West. Right. So they're incentivizing major corporations to come bring their businesses in here. They've got the cheapest taxes across any province, I believe. They're one of the most profitable. They got the best cost of living. It's like all these things are going for them. So already, if the Liberals, let's say, maintain their power from a political standpoint, Alberta has already done these things to force themselves to redefine themselves. So similar like Hamilton, when Hamilton was just steel town, and then all of a sudden, like US Steel buys out Stelco, and then Hamilton becomes this like stagnant city. And it's like, what do we do now? So like hospital developments start coming in, big banks start moving in. It's got like these bougie streets with these unique kind of restaurants and stuff that are really, bolstering the nightlife, right? So that starts to happen. And all of a sudden you start to see Hamilton not so dependent on just steel anymore. I think Alberta has always been very dependent on oil. And because of that, everything else, that's why it's been such a boom bust, right? Now, if the Conservatives come into power, I think that they're just literally going to take the lever and pull back on like, let's start drilling for oil. And I think at that point, there's going to be a major incentive for, young people that are looking to make boatloads of money and are okay with spending, 7 days in a camp and 4 days at home kind of thing. Like, why wouldn't you, right? You go there, you can make a killing, right? So all of a sudden, you're going to see Edmonton just fly off the handles. And that's what's happened in the past, right?
Awesome.
So that's kind of my synopsis. I kind of trailed off there a little bit.
No, it's good. I think that sometimes it gives everybody a bit of a more round image of the whole thing, instead of just...
So I think in real estate, though, too, it's wise to diversify. And I as much as I like Alberta, I can't put all my eggs in that basket. And that's why we're still... where our focus areas are actually going to be Columbus, Ohio, and Tennessee, just about all of it. But we're kind of focused on like the Knoxville area of Tennessee, which I really like. So that's we're planning to we're expecting actually our 4th child in January. So once that happens and the dust settles down a little bit, I'm hoping to take a little trip out there with Kaylee, and we've got some resources in our part of our networks out there already who've been talking to, and looking forward to make a face-to-face connection with those folks and actually start to put a plan in place.
Yeah. So, like you said, you're putting a plan in place. So maybe it's not all in place now, but what kind of strategy are you planning there? More flipping? Or are you going to do some burrs, some creative
I would
stuff?
like to do some bigger type buildings. So
Okay.
I might start with like same thing in Edmonton, where it's like we bought a small high rise, or mid small rise. I don't know what you call it, but like a 10 to 20 unit building. Start
Yep.
with that, and then aim to make a value add. Work through the kinks, and then from there we can start to scale up higher and higher.
Yep.
But I think Tennessee, there's a lot of advantages to buying in, like, this called the Smile States. One thing is too that Kaylee and I have always wanted to have a place that maybe we invest in that we could go to in the winters, and it's not such a drag. Like I'd love to go to Tennessee in the Canadian winter. It's beautiful out there.
Oh
So
yeah. 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 Well, I used to go down to Huntsville, Alabama, which is just south of Tennessee. But yeah,
yeah,
right in the same area. So I'm familiar.
yeah, yeah.
Alex, if people wanted to get a hold of you, they wanted to track down, talk about Columbus, Tennessee, Alberta, how do they find you?
Well, we have a website. It's www.palpropertysolutions.com. You can reach out to us there, or you can follow me on Instagram. It's Alex_Pal Property Solutions. Of course, if Facebook, you can find me, Alex Pal, as well. Or even if you just want to email me, it's apal@palpropertysolutions.com. So if you want to look for me and you look for Alex Pal, you'll find me. I promise you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Alex. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man. Thanks for having me. That was great.
That was a nice video. Bye.